40 contenders. 7 rounds. The road to the Coke Series ends here.
Good evening, race fans, and welcome to Podium Esports coverage for the 5th race for the 2021 eNASCAR Contender iRacing Series. Live tonight from the virtual Dover International Speedway in Dover, Delaware. Hey, Mike, the voice of Podium Esports here alongside Josh Lee, Devin Henry, and special guest Keegan Leahy. Lots to talk about as we enter the second half of the season and start getting to crunch time and beginning to figure out who is going to make the Coke Series in 2022. But gosh, Dover tonight, very fast, very technical, very tricky, very treacherous, I would say, with this high horsepower, low downforce combo of these cars for the NASCAR Xfinity Series.
I often compare this track to Indianapolis, not really how it's shaped, but how it races. Turn 1, mildly different than Turn 2. Turn 3, wildly different than the other 2 turns. Turn 4, wildly different than the other 3. Every single corner is different, and a lot of the ways these drivers race this track is you attack Turn 1, then you attack Turn 2. You don't attack it as one. So all these drivers are in for a bit of a unique race tonight, and like you mentioned, James, getting down into crunch time, 2 points separate 20th place and 21st. 2 points separate a spot in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series and Road to Pro in 2022 for one driver.
Just looking at the point standings, you're right. It's very tight amongst that cutoff. You look at the drivers from 16th to 25th in points. It's a 13-point spread, Devin Hendry, between 10 drivers. As we take a look at the point standings entering this evening, Alan Bowes, Colin Bowden, Jake Nichols, Zach Nichols, Brian Mercurio, currently the last 5 drivers on the good side of the cutoff line.
And after tonight, there are only 2 more races. So I call that, I don't like counting any sort of bonus points or this or that. I say that after tonight, there are 80 points maximum to go and get. So for these drivers tonight, especially the ones I'd say like 15th behind, you need a good finish here tonight. Because again, I'm not someone who looks at a drop week and goes, oh, okay, I have this drop week. Where's my drop week? I want to go out and go get good finishes. And when I look at the races left in this series, my biggest concern is there are only X amount of points maximum to get. I needed to get all that I can because I think that some drivers are going to look at the end of tonight and go, I think my season might just be over with Darlington and Texas left.
2 different animals, 2 different beasts that we have coming our way. Darlington, very, very much a technical racetrack in a similar vein to what we're going to see tonight. And then Texas, mile and a half madness to close this series out, just as we did the Coke Series back in October, which was won by our special guest this evening. First time we've had an eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series champion on the broadcast. So Keegan Leahy, a warm welcome to you, a warm welcome to the eNASCAR Contender iRacing Series.
Hey, thanks for the introduction, James, and thank all of you for the invitation to join you guys tonight. This is my first time commentating a race, at least from what I can remember. So, I'm just going to treat it as a fun thing. I want to try to educate some people on how to drive this place and what the racing's like here. And speaking of that, I want to echo some of Joshua's points earlier, how, maybe turn 2 and turn 4 look the same, but they do drive completely different. And the exits at this track are extremely important. It's also very difficult to pass here. So what you need is a good exit to set up your entry on the driver ahead of you. But what you're going to see tonight is a lot of people getting that position on the inside of another driver, but the outside's going to be able to maintain very well. That's what makes it so hard to pass here. The outside is so strong, especially with the bit of dynamic track we have and how loose the exits of the corners are. makes it really hard to complete that pass on exit. So what you'll start seeing is a lot of these drivers on the inside of a car, they're going to start crowding them. They're going to start pushing them up the track in the middle, maybe even on the exit of the corners. And that's where you start to see trouble here, but that's also where you start to get the excitement.
Makes things a lot of fun. I was about to ask what your tips and tricks were to getting quickly around over International Speedway, but say that serves as a good intro for us. Meanwhile, Josh Lee, let's take a look at this Dover International Speedway in the state capital of the first state in the Union.
Really simple when you look at it from this angle. It's 1 mile concrete surface and pretty much a perfect oval. Like Keegan mentioned, once you get down on the track, the challenges start to work their way in. One of the only tracks, or one of the tracks to have one of the higher bankings when it comes to the straights, 9 degrees on that banking, and what that creates, James, is a lot of low-key big wrecks, because everybody, once they hit that wall, where are they going? Directly to the inside wall of the racetrack. So these drivers need to be careful when avoiding those wrecks, because they can pile up and get Talladega or Daytona style big ones very quickly.
It's not quite Bristol in that sense, but there are similar characteristics, and in some cases it might be even a little bit more extreme because of the way this track self-cleans. Few tracks like it on the NASCAR circuit in that sense. Tonight we go for 140 laps, 140 miles, and 160 kilometers for those who use the metric system. I know Keegan will appreciate that. 35 miles an hour on pit road. Fuel window somewhere in the ballpark of 80 to 90 laps. 5 sets of tires available to these drivers. And the fastest lap in this car in real life, Christopher Bell, 22 seconds in 2016. Time to take a look at the starting grid for tonight's race. This 5th of 7 in the 2021 eNASCAR Contender iRacing Series. Cody Bias for Dead Zone Racing with a fast time of 22.526 seconds. He'll start alongside Parker Retzlaff. Chris Sherbert and Femi Olat will start 3rd and 4th respectively. Donovan Strauss, winner at Nashville, will start from the 5th spot. 6th on the grid belongs to Liam Brotherton. Josh.
And back from there, lining up row 4, Dylan Alt to the inside. Kyle Peddle in the 54 starts over there in the outside of row 4. Derek Bordeaux, Taylor Hurst going to round out the top 10 with Santiago Tires and Justin Bolton with a great qualifying effort starting P12.
Brian Mercurio for Lowline Racing starts off inside of row 7. Daniel Eberhardt next to him. Row 8 made up of Jordy Lopez and Briar LaPrade. Caden Honeycutt and Malik Ray making up row number 9.
Anthony Burrows will start 19th on the grid. Rounding out the top 20 is Ryan Doucette. Drake Nichols rolls off in the 21st position. 22nd on the grid belongs to Michael Cozy Jr. And in row number 12, starting 23rd is Casey Tucker. And 24th is Blade Witt.
Starting on the inside of row 13, that'll be Nicholas Shelton with Blake Reynolds to his outside. Seth DeMerchant, Brandon McKissick are going to share row 14 with Colin Bowden and Derek Justice to the outside of row 15, rounding out the top 30.
Ashton Crowder back in P31 alongside Garrett Lowe. Jake Matheson and Blake McCandless making up the 17th row on the grid. Christian Pedersen is the last car to set time. Colin Keister to the outside of him.
Zach Nichols, Alan Bowes, the last 2 drivers on the grid, they both declined to set a qualifying time, so they'll start from the rear. Current in-sim weather conditions look like this. 67 degrees Fahrenheit air temp, 83 degrees Fahrenheit track temp. We move to the back half of the season, and so we move into the portion of the schedule where our in-sim time and date moves to the spring of next year. That's tradition with this Contender Series, and this is no different. The in-sim date is March 1st, 2022, so the first Tuesday of the month next year. Winds are headed to the northwest at 4 miles an hour. Humidity sitting at 45%. Before we go green flag racing, let's go quickly down to Justin Prince.
Thank you very much, James. And for many drivers, it's been a very busy past couple of days. A lot of movement when it comes to the technical alliances. Several shuffled about, with Jake Matheson moving over to Charge Racing after initially planning to retire to focus on short track setups. Well, as well, Brandon McKissick and Anthony Burrows, they've shuffled over to Bobby DeMar's Legacy Esports. And Donovan Strauss has picked up some additional support from Lockdown. Lots of movement entering tonight.
You know how important those back-end technical alliances are as we go green flag racing. Round number 5 of the eNASCAR Contender iRacing Series is live from the virtual Dover International Speedway. Cody Bias leads that first lap just ahead of Retzlaff, Olan, Brotherton, and company. But immediately, Josh Lee, everybody down to the bottom. You have to go all the way back to Brian Mercurio, Justin Bolton, and Briar LaPrade in 13th, 14th, and 15th to find the first side-by-side battle on the racetrack.
And they definitely did not start all on the bottom, James. Coming off of turn number 2 on that opening lap, I saw a fan out of 3-4 wide. A couple of drivers almost making contact. Homestead winner Colin Keister almost got caught up in an incident closer to the back of the field. But now, like you mentioned, everybody at the front starting to get single file. And look at Cody Bias starting to pull away from Parker Retzlaff. We saw a similar pace from him in the Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series when it came to his one win of the season at the Charlotte Motor Speedway. We're going to have a dominant night tonight, and he could use a dominant night to his advantage. 8th place currently in the point standings. Still a good ways above that top 20 cut line, but going here to Dover with Darlington and Texas on the horizon, you can never be too safe when it comes to this points championship.
Everybody single file still in, but you get back to down 20th, and it really is about that kind of mess where everybody's scrambling for position already. Looks like track position is going to mean a lot more to these drivers and these teams than I think even we accounted for initially, Devin.
And you know, this was a track that initially scared me when I first got onto the service, because it's one of those underrated tracks in the fact that when you're watching it on TV or even on this broadcast, the straightaway does not feel 48 feet wide, and that number almost seems irrelevant until you get on the track and realize how wide 48 feet is on those straightaways, and still only 58 feet wide in the corners. It's such a tight racetrack when you're coming off a corner exit in that second lane, or even these drivers on the inside when they're trying to make a pass. How much these cars want to float up on exit makes for such difficult racing. Looking at Donovan Strauss going off of what I think James Pike will call the Michael Jordan flu game of iRacing, if you will. So he's still got a lot of momentum, and of course with such a great bump in the points, you know that's going to be one of the drivers tonight. Really not relaxing, but he's not going to force anything to put him into a bad situation tonight.
At least early on in this race. And as I look at this field, we're seeing a little bit of the crowding that Keegan Leahy mentioned. But Keegan, everybody in single file so quickly. To you, what does that say about how these drivers are going to try and approach this race and what the general strategy is for most people in this field?
Yeah, this single file has nothing to do with how hard it is to get side by side with somebody. It's more the drivers not wanting to take risks, not wanting to get stuck in either the inside or the outside, and getting what we call trained by the whole pack. And also drivers are trying to save tires right now. So you'll start to notice in the next few laps, people are going to start to realize, okay, this guy ahead of me isn't saving tires, he's just slower than me, and you'll start to see people make moves on them. I'll give it another few laps and we'll start to see a lot more battles.
I think you might already be seeing your prediction bear just a little bit of fruit. If we go look back where Chris Schuberman and Dylan Alt are, we've started to see battles develop here amongst the top 10. Donovan Strauss alongside Fabiola just ahead of this shot, but a battle back of about maybe 6 or 7 cars coming down the front stretch, Josh.
Oh, look at how close Chris Sherburne was to that outside wall coming off of turn 4. And take a look at how close they're getting back here with Bordeaux now on the outside of Santiago Tires. There's turn 3. The wall creeps up so quickly on the exit of that third corner. Luckily, nobody hits the wall there, and they continue to run side by side. And Keegan mentions not wanting to have the entire inside line go immediately by you as we take a look at the famous lean of Taylor Hurst. Bordeaux and Sherburne are holding their own on the outside line right now, but he did mention that tire wear, trying to save tires as well. That is not going to go well for the tires of Bordeaux or Sherburne, as Sherburne goes side by side with his teammate Santiago Tires, and a little bit of a bang to the door of Taylor Hurst. It looks like from the driver to his inside. I believe that was Brian Mercurio on the 41. Here comes Mercurio back to look to the inside in 1.
I didn't see any particular contact between Mercurio and Hurst, but I did see contact between Hurst and Bordeaux. I'm a little surprised, just off of my vantage point, that I don't see any damage to the right front of Hurst's machine, given how hard I thought the contact was. But I guess we didn't necessarily get too hard into each other, and they'll continue to roll on in 11th and 12th respectively as we go on board with Blake McCandless a little bit further back in the field, currently running in the 30th position, but he's got company with him, Colin Keister. You mentioned David Henry, winner earlier on this season in the eNASCAR Contender iRacing Series.
Keister's just been so consistent this season, and up atop the points, he has just been able to clock in great finishes, even though he really hasn't qualified well. But starting back outside the top 25, that's not necessarily where Keister wants to be. But as he looks to the inside now, Jake Nichols, this is probably the best guy, at least momentum-wise, to be stuck behind, trying to find a way around him. Meanwhile, up front, Brotherton under attack now from Cody Bias after Brotherton took the lead. Man, Bias did not let that rear bumper go, but now that 19 starting to check on out.
And it becomes a question of whether or not you're saving tires or whether or not you're generally faster, or maybe whether or not you're just trying to go for it and get as much time as you can. But Keegan, you'll know this as well as anybody. This is a track where you end up paying for pushing hard early on a green flag run. If we go long, if this goes green the entire way, that last 15, 20 laps that you run around here, if you end up pushing the tires in the opening few laps of the run, you pay for it significantly on the back end.
Yeah, you're totally right about that, James. I do a lot of coaching actually with VRS, and what I tell people often is we don't save tires in these big races, but Dover is an exception. These corners are so long, so fast, so high load that you kind of have to underdrive the car every single lap a little bit. Now, that's not to say there's no skill in it. You're definitely pushing the car to the limits at certain points of the corner, but a lot of these guys are underdriving the center a little bit to try to keep those tire temperatures down. Now, what happens is if you push the car for one lap, maybe 2 laps in a row, sure, you might turn faster lap times, but you pay for it the whole next 5, 10, 20 laps before your tires finally cool back down.
And so then the challenge, Keegan, is that it's not necessarily about just pushing outright 100, 110%. It's more about trying to figure out what the right number is to drive to and what the right pace or lap time is to hit, and being able to do that consistently over and over and over again. That separates the good from the great here, Dover, no?
Yeah, exactly. So what you're seeing a lot of these guys doing sitting in line here is they're trying to not necessarily stick to the car ahead, but they're trying to drive just fast enough so they can't be passed. So the more they save, the better they'll be on the long run. But they don't want to save so much that they start getting passed because you burn up all your tires trying to get those guys back later into the run.
And this is the balance that a lot of the drivers in this field are trying to find, whether or not they're running in 5th or 30th. Something that we'll keep an eye on over the course of this opening run. Already 21 laps down of 140 as Taylor Hurst, Derek Bordeaux, Justin Bolton continuing to go at it. Good battle for position here. This is 11th, 12th, 13th on the racetrack, Josh.
And you can see as they go through the middle of the corner, they kind of condense up. And it's kind of what we're seeing throughout this entire long train of drivers that we have around the bottom of the racetrack. On the straightaways, they're going to spread out. And then right as they go all and down into turn number 1 or 3, everybody condenses together. That's where we saw the contact between it was Taylor Hurst and Derek Bordeaux. Bordeaux had to slow up just a tad bit for the drivers in front of him. That's when Taylor Hurst came up and made that contact with the left rear. So taking a look at how these drivers are racing, very close, a couple of them to making contact with the cars in front. Haven't had any spins yet. We're still seeing a bit of side-by-side moment closer to the back with Eberhardt and Tierez as we go on board with Parker Retzlaff. Brand new colors on that number 42 machine as he fights from P3.
A little bit less black, a little bit more yellow as we see the Champion Power Equipment Ford Mustang tackle the high banks of the Monster Mile. Here's Jake Nichols a little bit further back in the field trying to work his way around Blake McCandless at Ryan Doucette. This is 28th, 29th, and 30th that we're working through now, Devin.
And you can see just how tight these drivers are coming off the corners. You have to be so meticulous with such a minuscule margin of error when you go into corner entry, corner exit, when you're side by side like that, as Nichols will now slide back in behind. And I look at what has already happened in this race. Earlier on, we were running laps. The leaders were at least of around a 23.1 to a 23.3. Through 25 laps, we have already knocked off about a second worth of time. We are now running in the 24s, low to mid 24s, and with how these guys are slowing down with this tire wear already, I'm wondering exactly how these drivers are going to want to break up their pit stops to maximize potential speed once you get that fresh rubber onto these cars.
I suspect that our pit road reporter might have an answer to your questions, Devin Henry. So, Justin Prince, what have you gleaned for us?
Well, first things first, when it comes to the race leader, their focus was trying to get up to the front and quickly. In Brotherson's opinion, he said this about 10 laps ago. He feels if he had been running up front all season, he might have been winning some of the races so far this season in Contender Series competition. He's been told to back up his corners, lift early, let it roll, and save the tires up at that front. Meanwhile, compare that to Donovan Strauss. They're in the opinion of letting Brotherton and company fall back towards him. He's been saving since passing a lot around the outside line around lap 10. So a lot of drivers are being told essentially, save tires for this run.
An interesting sport there. And Keegan, I want to come to you on this because I think you'll probably be best suited to answer it. When you're behind the wheel, can you get a good sense of how much people or how little people are saving tires ahead of you, behind you, just based off of what you know your strategy is and what you've tried to plan out? Or is it harder to read from the cockpit, and are you more focused on trying to run your race?
Yeah, you can usually tell what people ahead of you are trying to do. A good setup, the difference between a good setup, a great setup, and a terrible setup can be just a tenth of a second or even less. So if you start seeing guys ahead of you driving 3/10 slower than what you're capable of running, they're probably saving quite a lot. And that's what I'm seeing with a lot of cars up here. You see people backing off on entry. Some people are checking up in the center of the corner. It's not because their cars are bad. They're trying to save tires at different parts of the corner and do that as optimally as possible. Now, as the run goes on, you stop needing to save because there's fewer and fewer laps towards the end of the run. So people start getting more towards their optimal pace, around lap 40, lap 50 of the run. But we're on lap 31 here. This is a key part of the run, in my opinion, because from lap 1 to lap 10 to lap 20, you start to have a lot of handling changes through the run. You go from being pretty loose the first few laps to very tight lap 10, lap 15. Loosens back up around lap 20, but by 30 onward, more or less, you've got what you got. So whoever's fast right now, I think is going to be fast for the whole rest of the run here.
All points we'll keep an eye on. Meanwhile, Justin Prince, an update from Christian Peterson.
Yes, indeed. He was running towards the back of the pack in this race, and it was not the best of starts for him. Started off fairly loose and got so loose coming through turns 3 and 4, he went into the outside wall. Just spoke with him after he jumped out of the race car. He's fixed most of the damage as a result of the contact, but he plans to park it from this point forward. First driver out.
Christian Peterson out, and I won't say that just about knocks out his chances to advance to the Coach Series, but he came into tonight 35th in points. Now is going to have to use this as his drop, but he already has a pretty low drop to begin with, only 4 points at a unit at Homestead off of a poor finish there. So it's not officially curtains yet for Christian Peterson, but Josh Lee, it's going to take something pretty special in the last 2 races for him to make the Coach Series next year.
And so unfortunate, because now once we pass Dover, we're going to be starting to talk about those drivers that have officially no chance. There is no mathematical way that they can end up qualifying for the Coca-Cola iRacing Series. And Peterson had a little bit of bad luck in the first couple of rounds. This is undoubtedly going to be his drop that he was going to use. Actually, it might not even end up being his drop, because I believe he had a 38th place finish at Homestead as well. So he's going to have to keep this position. So it's only going to put him further down from P32, where he started tonight. So unfortunate for the Logitech G Altus Esports machine. Altus, we know how dominant they are in other sectors of the iRacing World Championships, and still trying to put more of their drivers up and into the Coke Series, and unfortunately one of them might have just been taken out by that one loose moment in turn 3.
Good look at Michael Cozy Jr. here out of Hagerstown, Maryland, who found a little bit of speed last week. Seems like Logitech G Altus Esports did finally have a better week than they've had in the opening few rounds of this eNASCAR Contender iRacing Series, but still a big hill to climb for him. 29 points off the cutoff, with Blade Witt currently sits entering tonight in 20th. He needs a good run in order to try and climb his way back into contention. The problem is he's got a very, very quick Violet Brad right next to him.
Back up front, we're getting a little bit crazy. How about a move for the second position? Parker Renslap. Try to peek inside. Ooh, trouble here. It looks like Garrett Lowe with major damage on that front end.
If we can get a sense of what happened to Garrett Lowe, but there was trouble for Lowe. Get a good look at the replay here. And I think there was contact between Lowe and Alan Bose. Those two get together on corner exit, and Bose got some of the fence, but Lowe, I think, is going to get the worst of it here.
And then you can see Bose and Lowe get together once, they get together twice, and Ashton Crowder gets into that one as well. No caution, we stay green, but so unfortunate, especially for Ashton Crowder. He had absolutely nowhere to go, wasn't even in that battle when they started to make contact with each other, and then there, the first tap, here comes the second, and there's Ashton Crowder, absolutely nowhere for him to go. He has been having the most unlucky Contender Series season, James. He has a total of 8 points on the board through the first 4 rounds. That damage is definitely not going to help him here from Virtual Monster Mile.
Big trouble there. Meanwhile, Lowe with more damage and trying to make sure that he can just keep the engine cool. Sounds like there are issues with that car potentially overheating. And then damage to the right side of Alan Bose's machine, which you wouldn't necessarily think would be an issue. But Keegan, you'll know this as well as anybody. You get wall damage on that right side, it really does affect you, because this track, I think, is deceptively aero-sensitive.
Yeah, definitely. Any track that's getting over that 150 mile an hour mark, you start to get really aero sensitive. This car, especially in my opinion, you get a little wrinkle on that right front fender and you'll lose a tenth just from that aero. Let me also bring up a point here. I'm watching Daniel Eberhard and Taylor Hurst. These guys are leading a pack of cars right up to the leaders right now. I know Cody Bias just took the lead, but this pack behind is catching them.
Keep an eye on the speed of Everhart in comparison to the leaders. Last time by, they were virtually equal on lap times, but Everhart, Hurst, Bordeaux, Bolton, Lopez, Shearburn, even Nicholas Shelton. Shelton ran a 24.6, which was a full tenth faster than the leaders, so this train of about 6 or 7, you're right, Keegan, is gaining on the leaders, and more importantly, faster than the cars ahead of them, the cars directly ahead of them, by a solid tenth or so. The Kyle Pedals, Dylan Alt, Santi Tires, everybody running just outside of the top 5. So what is currently a 4-car train from Pithon now may end up becoming a, maybe call it 10-ish car train if they can stay in line. But here comes Eric Bordeaux to the inside of Taylor Hurst to change that. Josh?
Oh, look at that side-by-side moment. They're so close together, just inches separating these virtual race cars racing around Dover. And you can see how what we talked about in the pre-show. Turn 1, different than Turn 2. You race them differently. They blended up the racetrack going through the middle of those corners. Keegan mentioned underdriving the middle. You can see them going almost a full lane up through the middle of these corners, diving back to arch the corner, coming out, and then right back to the front or back straightaway. And I'll tell you what, Derek Bordeaux is not giving up on the inside. Taylor Hurst not giving up on the outside. Same thing with Justin Bolton as he joins this fight. And take a look at Jordy Lopez Jr. for Logitech G Alta C Sports, watching in the 4th spot in this battle. Behind them, Shearburn's there, Nicholas Shelton is there, Caden Honeycutt trying to catch up to this group.
It's almost to the point here, and Keegan, I don't know if you've been able to tell whether or not this has evolved over the course of the run, but it almost looks to me like they're diamonding the corners now that we've progressed a little bit deeper into this run, so that you ride up in the middle of the corner, but you enter low and you exit low to try and get that big launch down the front and the back straightaway.
Right, there's a few things going on here, actually. One thing, they're just trying not to let anyone get to their outside now. These guys are driving hard, and if you let someone get to your outside, you're going to lose 1 spot at least, probably more. But we're getting some dynamic track now. That bottom lane got pretty hot with everyone running the bottom for most of the run. And also, as these tires are wearing out, you've got less grip, and it becomes harder and harder to get the power down on the exit of the corner. If you enter the corner hard, wash up a little bit in the center of the corner, and then cut it down nice and hard on exit, that straightens up your corner exit so you can get the power down.
And this is where we start to see the issues of people getting on the throttle too quickly on corner exit. Devin Henry, it's not the first time that we've approached a situation where we may end up seeing some drivers overdrive corner exit, potentially getting themselves loose, spinning themselves out. It's something we have to watch for, especially as we work our way towards the end of a long green flag run, as we watch this battle between Liam Brotherton and Donovan Strauss and company.
And you really saw that coming off of turn 4, just how close Donovan Strauss was to the left rear quarter panel. Liam Brotherton, Santiago Tiers peaked there on Femiola, but didn't really have anything for him. But like you're saying, James, this is the part of the race where everyone is riding a very fine line because of how much you're pushing there in the center of the corner. You have to reset. We keep talking about, oh, well, turn 1 is different than turn 2, and 3 is different than 4. Why is that important? For moments like this. If you cannot get the car back down after you float up in the center, you are either A, hitting the wall, or 2, hitting someone else into the wall and then back into you. So you ride a very fine line right now if you cannot get back down when you're coming onto corner exit. So that's another issue these drivers have to fight. It looks like our first caution of the day is coming on out here on lap 51.
Indeed, it's Caden Honeycutt who's gone around in turns 3 and 4. First yellow flag of the night here, and looking at the replay here, I think he may have gotten some help from Malik Ray.
What did I say earlier, James? The field condenses going through the middle of these corners. You can see Brian LaPrade clearing Caden Honeycutt, and here's where the contact happened. Honeycutt had a bit of a gap, and that gap closed up incredibly quickly. Malik Ray wasn't ready for it, and there's the contact with Caden Honeycutt. Almost getting involved with Blade Witt. I believe that was the 98 Ashton Crowder that got turned to the inside, closer to the pit wall. It was not. Wondering who the driver was that also made contact. We saw Blade Witt almost get into this one. And that looked to be, I believe, Justin Bolton, who barely got tapped by the 10 of Caden Honeycutt. But we've got pit stops, James.
We do have pit stops. Ryan Doucette also involved in that incident, but for more from Pit Road, let's go to Justin Prince.
So the pit window is now opened up for the first time tonight. Majority of the drivers peeling on in. Some very calm and quiet radios for the front runners, but some hot tempers for some of the drivers involved in the attrition so far. Caden Honeycutt not happy as a result of that contact. His spotter was also not happy with Malik Ray in that regard as well. They did not plan to take tires, but plan to get repairs done. This caution flag. Several were still getting repairs done, including Ray, Burrows, and company. First one off the pit lane was Parker Retzlaff.
Parker Retzlaff to the point ahead of Bias, Brotherton, Strauss, and Tiras coming off of pit road. Looks like everybody, though, being smart, being sensible, taking 4 tires. No shocker there. I think the bigger question here, though, is just looking at the general math here. Keegan, you can correct me on this. I know you're going to know this better than I will, but we're close to being able to make it to the end here. You may have to save a little bit. You might need another yellow, but by my math, we're not terribly far removed from at least being able to make it to the scheduled distance of 140 laps. But, of course, this becomes a different story entirely if we get a green-white checker.
Yeah, for sure. So we already saw one really long green flag run here, so it's definitely possible this thing can go green. Number I have is about 80 laps on fuel. But this is a track you can save quite a lot because there's a lot of time off throttle on the entry of the corner. You have the opportunity to just coast on the entry, not brake, just clutch the car, even shut the engine off if you want to. You can save those 5 laps easy. So what I'm looking for here, I want to go check if anybody tops off under these yellow flags, especially near the back of the pack. Somebody's probably going to go for this.
We have people coming down pit road in that vein, but they're all drivers who have damage or were involved in either that most recent yellow flag or an incident that happened under green. So Caden Honeycutt, Brandon McKissick, Alan Bowes, all coming in, all trying to get their cars repaired. They may end up topping off just a little bit as well, but I think the bigger question is whether or not anyone towards the very back that doesn't have damage. And as I look through this field, it looks like Casey Tucker is the last car in line without any damage whatsoever. So there may be advantage to somebody like him coming in for service. I see Malik Ray and Derek Justice coming in to get their cars fixed up a little bit, but they may be topping off as well. So nobody with a clean car coming in to get that extra splash of fuel, but everybody else lining up and getting set to go for the restart, trying to focus on making their way towards the front, Josh Lee.
This restart is going to be interesting. We got Parker Retzlaff back up to the front, and then Cody Bias on the outside. And we've heard a little bit of Parker Retzlaff being slightly annoyed with Liam Brotherton when he was racing him at the front. So we'll see how that's going to affect this restart. We got Donovan Strauss up here. How about Femi Olot? Another solid run building up for Femi Olot. Comes in 5th in the points. We'll see what he can do here.
A lot with another quietly consistent run in this Contender series, and how often do we see that from him? It's almost a carbon copy of what he was able to do last year, Devin Henry, where he didn't necessarily, light it up with podiums and top threes, wins, whatnot, but he was always in the top 10 every single week. That's part of the reason why he was able to get into the Coke Series last year, part of the reason why he's in decent shape to make a return to the Coke Series in 2022. As Parker Retzlaff gets us back underway, and we'll go back racing at Dover with 55 of 140 laps complete, Devin.
And on that point, James, you don't need to have those wins. You don't need to have those podiums. You just need to drive consistently. And I look back at what happened to Parker Retzlaff last week at Nashville Super Speedway. Got some right side damage, lost aero, but somehow salvaged a great finish there. Now leading, not for long, Liam Brotherton. How about pounding the outside lane, looking for P1 here off of 4?
Liam Brotherton to the point. Back up front, here comes Santiago Tires looking for his best run of this Contender Series today. And Donovan Strauss following suit for Space Station Gaming right behind him. The fastest man in this series so far. The points leader now clear, and it looks like Retzlaff's beginning to get the freight train on him that Keegan Leahy was so worried about early on in this race.
And as they dive back into 1, Retzlaff is falling victim, exactly like you were mentioning, James. Take a look as he falls back behind Femi Olot. He's going to find an opening in line P6. Shades of Daytona and Talladega. We talked about it having a lot of big wrecks. Are easy to form big wrecks at this racetrack like the Clayton tracks, but same thing where you need to be in that line or else it is going to be almost game over for you. Luckily, Parker Retzlaff was able to find an opening inside that main line on the bottom, but looked like for a moment he'd be falling all the way through the field, almost touching the wall a little bit further back. That's Nicholas Shelton. They're continuing to go side by side behind the race leaders, but they're going to go side by side now. Tires on the inside, Liam Brotherton trying to hold him off on the outside, but Santiago Tires to the race lead.
Santiago Tires, your leader now at Dover, and I think this is the first time he's led throughout the whole of the Contender Series, but certainly would not mind a big run in the slightest. He came into tonight right on the edge of that group that's right around the bubble, 26th in the point standings. What a win would do for his chances to make the Contender Series, or rather make the Coke Series in 2022 would be a big leg up in his efforts to try and return to the top level of eNASCAR. Brotherton back to 2nd, Strauss just sitting in 3rd, Bias in 4th, Olot 5th, and they're not really doing much until you get back to about 11th, 12th, 13th, and so that's where Michael Cossey Jr., Derek Bordeaux, and Taylor Hurst are battling. And Keegan, just as you look at this pack, is there anything that you're noticing amongst this maybe handful to about 10 drivers that you're seeing here that are all door-to-door, middle of the field?
Oh, absolutely. Well, first, I need to congratulate Liam Brotherton on a really good move there to take the lead early on. He's dropped back now to 2nd place, but he knows he's got the short run car to hold the lead for a while, or stay up front at least. But he was falling back there around lap 40, lap 50 of the last run, so he needs to make up those positions when he can. But the guy I'm really watching here is Nicholas Shelton in the 5 car. He's driven up from 25th to 8th. That's all on track, and he's been making amazing moves. He was the fastest car on the short run here. He's been the fastest car on the long run whenever I look. He's really impressive here, and he's going to drive up to the front, I think.
Egan, you've got a valid point, because you look at where all these drivers started. Nobody in this field has gained more spots in this race than Nicholas Shelton. And for Nicholas, I think, Josh, this whole series has been about trying to redeem himself from the opening round at Phoenix, where he had the dominant car, got passed late, didn't win the race. He hasn't had a car anywhere near as strong as the Phoenix car since. This might be his best chance to get a checkered flag since the opening race of this Contender Series. And after the way that panned out, I'd be hard-pressed to believe that he doesn't have at least a little bit of motivation to try and go get the win.
I got to butt in here one more time. Just as I called out Nicholas on an amazing drive to the front, He got outdrove there a little bit. Michael Cozy Jr., he took the outside when Nick was trying to save tires. That's the move that you got to watch out for, is if you're saving, someone can get to your outside in the center of the corner. You're just going to drop back. Nick just lost 3 spots.
And very difficult for Nicholas Shelton now to hold on, and you can see he's going to fall back into line here as they continue to go side by side now in front of him between Pedal and Alts. And point Keegan brought up there, very easy for these drivers to just sort of lose it a little bit. Nicholas Shelton can be on a roll, and it takes a lot of talent that a lot of drivers in the Coach Series have, and a lot of drivers in the Contender Series has as well, to just log in consistent lap times. They can run almost the exact same lap time just with tire wear each and every time around. Very difficult to do that at Dover, because every time you dive into a corner here, something is going to be different, whether it's the tires, whether it's the aero, whether you're racing around another car. It'll always change when you dive into a corner here at Dover, which is why this track is so difficult to master.
Santiago Gutierrez is gone in a way that we have not seen anyone else in this field up to this point able to do. Clear by 1.5 seconds over Liam Brotherton. It's almost 2 seconds back to Donovan Strauss. They're single file up until you get to about 9th, 10th. And then there's the Nicholas Shelton tour, who's trying to rebound after those great moves from Michael Cozy. He now to the outside of Parker Retzlaff, and now looking at Dylan Alt to try and get the 8th position, Devin.
And Parker Retzlaff has the anchor out as he now falls outside of the top 10 as Pedal flies on by. Justin Prince was reporting that he is just trying to save tires right now, but I almost wouldn't be surprised. Is he on a fuel save too? He just goes to the inside defending, but also it's not like he's really fighting back for these positions. The 42 just starts to kind of slide on back there. He's really not fighting and vying for this position. I gotta think though, guys, remember he restarted on that most recent green flag on the pole. Now he's already almost back to 15th. I wonder if there's a strategy here for Retzlaff. I can't imagine that car turned wicked that poorly.
All right, well, let's go to our master strategist in the house here. Keegan, what do you think's going on with Retzlaff's car?
Yeah, I tend to believe them. I think they're tire saving. I see there's a really big split strategy here with a lot of drivers thinking, okay, I need to make positions now. Everyone's saving around me. I need to make moves on the outside and go up through the field. And there's some other guys here that are saving tires and trying to play the long game here. But think about what goes hand in hand with saving tires. You're kind of driving a bit slower, you take the entries a bit easier, and that also saves fuel. So I think Parker might be saving fuel here a bit.
Maybe it's more about the fuel than it is the tires. And remember, we were close to being able to make it to the end just off of the way this caution panned down around 20 laps ago or so. So Parker might be playing a long game compared to everyone else. Might be trying to just stay out the whole way through. Not even have to worry about a splash of gas as it stands. Meanwhile, as they continue to race up front, we'll go back down to pit road to Justin Prince. Justin.
And as Keegan referred to, fuel is a big talking point when it comes to the Retzlaff camp. Right now, he has been told to save and save often from the start of this run. The main concern for them is if they get a caution flag, they can be in trouble from that point forward. But they feel confident that if it goes green, the drivers who are pushing hard right now, they're going to be in trouble fuel mileage-wise. As talked about, the very top of the fuel window came to be right towards that middle of that caution flag period. They're playing the long game when it comes to their strategy. Meanwhile, for some of the other drivers, they're trying to push hard and very hard, such as Cozy Jr. and Shelton. Both of them have been working fairly well together in terms of pace, trying to open lines for one another to continue to close up the gap. It's been interesting to see how the contrasting strategies have been playing out for the drivers hoping for a caution versus those wanting it to stay green.
And to some degree, Josh, it's a gamble either way, because if you drive hard, yes, you're going to gain the track position, but you're also going to need to come down pit road a little bit sooner than everyone else. And if you don't get a yellow, then you're going to give up track position at some point. For the flip side, people like Parker Retzlaff, you're willingly giving up the track position now under the hope that everybody is going to have to come down pit road, and you won't. And that, in turn, you'll get all the track position back that you've given up based on how things play out. So very much a two-sided coin, and the question is, which one is the right side to pick? The problem is that you can't really know the answer to that question ahead of time now, can you?
Now, the only time you're going to know the answer to that question is about a lap or two too late than you actually needed that answer. So really, like you mentioned, it's a gamble, and it's one of the biggest gambles in not just stock car racing, not just virtual racing, real life racing as well, as we see Colin Keister clutching going into turn number 3 there, also trying to save a bit of tires and a bit of fuel at the same time. But on the topic of the gamble, it's across all forms of racing. Do you want to go hard early and maybe have more of a tire fall off and pit a little bit earlier? Or do you want to sacrifice a bit of time on the racetrack, sacrifice track spots, and move your way closer to the mid-pack and then fight your way back up with fresh tires? There are ways that both of them can work, and there are ways that both of them can go wrong. So you need to get either one or the other perfect for it to work, especially against the 37 drivers that we have on the track tonight.
Guess to me that Colin Keister might be in the Parker Retzlaff camp here and maybe saving fuel just as much as Retzlaff is. You get a good look here at Jordy Lopez Jr. trying to pass Parker Retzlaff, but he in turn has Taylor Hirsch peeking underneath his left rear quarter panel. So plenty of activity that Lopez is having to manage both in front of and behind him, Evan.
We got a lot of guys working out that fuel strategy. Justin Prince is reporting that Donovan Strauss, another driver using the clutch. Numerous drivers right now considering this long fuel run. And I want to go back real quick to Colin Keister, because we were talking about those guys who be great to follow from the rear of the pack to the front of the pack. Well, remember, Keister is one of the drivers who did not set a time tonight. He's already up to P20. Who else did not set a time? That being Zach Nichols directly in front of him. Guess what? He's now a 19th. I like what these two are doing. These guys I'm going to be keeping my eye on for the rest of these 59 laps. Not only do they have a plan, but it looks like they are definitely executing right now. We haven't talked about them almost all night, but these are the two who I think have a very clear and concise idea of what they need to do to get up front by race end.
Long game. Long game, long game, long game. It's a phrase that we said a few times already. It's a phrase that we're going to continue to bring up so long as we continue to race under the green flag. A yellow flag would change strategy significantly for pretty much everybody in this field at this stage. We're working our way inside of 60, now close to 55 laps to go. So if we get a yellow now, you can come down pit road and make it. And at that point, it's not really so much of a strategy game as it is a race your way to the front outright. Whether or not we'll make things happen. But for now, let's turn our attention to our iRacing midway race break and tell you where your favorite driver is running in that break. Of course, courtesy of iRacing, world's premier online racing game. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat to experience today's newest form of competitive motorsport, virtual racing, all from your home PC. Race virtually in Australian supercars, IndyCar, IMSA, NASCAR, the World of Outlaws, and more. Santiago Gutierrez cleared the field by almost 3 seconds with 85 laps complete. Liam Brotherton runs in second. Third on the racetrack is Cody Bias, and fourth currently belongs to Femi Ola. Daniel Eberhardt completes the top 5. Donovan Strauss currently in the 6th position. 7th is where you'll find Kyle Pettle. Dylan Alt runs in the 8th spot. 9th belongs to Nicholas Shelton. And rounding out the top 10, Josh Lee is Michael Cozy Jr.
Parker Retzlaff is going to start that group outside the top 10 with Derek Bordeaux behind him. Jordy Lopez Jr. will currently sit P13 with Taylor Hirsch P14. Justin Boltson is going to round out your top 15 with Colin Bowden, Chris Shearburn, Zach Nichols, Colin Keister, Blake Reynolds rounding out the top 20, Devin.
Seth the Merchant riding around in that 21st position. Caden Honeycutt in P22. Brian Mercurio riding in 23rd. Blade Witt in P24. 25th is Jake Matheson. 26th, Briar LaPrade. Jake Nichols right now currently in 27th. Blake McCandless, after his gamble of a strategy last year right below the cut line, he sits P28. Derek Justice, Anthony Burrows round out the top 30.
Casey Tucker currently in the 31st position. 32nd is Brandon McKissick. Alan Bowes holds the 33rd spot and 34th. There's to Malik Gray. Ryan Doucette in 35th at this time. 36 is where you'll find Ashton Crowder, Garrett Lowe, and Christian Peterson. The last 2 cars in this race. Peterson, the only car out of proceedings. Currently 59 laps, or rather 63 laps down to our race leader, Santiago Gutierrez. That concludes tonight's iRacing Midway Race Break. With over 170,000 drivers on the service and over 90 racer scanned tracks and cars to choose from, iRacing is your portal to the racing world. Get on track today at iRacing.com. Santiago Gutierrez is gone. Top 5 are well spaced out. I think best place we can go to, probably 13th. We'll head to the front of this pack that includes Jordi Lopez Jr., Taylor Hurst, Justin Bolton, Colin Bowden, Chris Schubert, all names that we've seen fighting. And maybe most impressively, Josh Lee, Colin Keister, we still presume is saving fuel at least to a point, but he's in the middle of this too and faring better than a lot of the other drivers who have been trying to save gas.
And taking a look at this field right now, you can really tell who's trying to save and who's not. You can tell who's trying to be safe about the tires, safe about the fuel, and who's trying to gain positions on the racetrack. We're still seeing a couple of side-by-side, but take a look at these drivers up at the front. Pretty spaced out, as it looks like Caden Honeycutt is going to bring his number 10 machine down into the pit lane. This has not seemed like a timed pit stop, but we'll see if our pit reporter JP is going to have any more information on the 10 coming down to the pit lane. We saw Honeycutt get involved in an incident earlier on, so I would not be surprised if this is related to that. JP, what do you got from pit row with Caden Honeycutt?
Well, keep in mind, remember, he was amongst those drivers who had to get some damage repairs done as a result of that caution flag period. Right now, their focus, try and make it to the end of this race at this point with that damage. Off and away goes Caden Honeycutt with 4 tires and fresh Sunoco fuel for that race car. Keep in mind, there is a lot of discussion on how close the fuel can be. Some are expecting and estimating drivers to be up to 3 laps short at the current rate some of these drivers are going.
Justin, do you have any information about whether or not drivers may try and split this green flag run in half, and whether or not we could see some folks down pit road?
There is talk of that, yes, for some of the drivers, but it's more so for a lot of these teams who blinks first. Some of them are currently making calculations at the moment on the fly to figure out how much gas they need to try and short fuel it, which lap they elect to come on down and peel it down, especially with some of the drivers pushing hard amongst the front of the pack. So keep in mind that window could shuffle about starting within the next few laps all the way to as close to as about 20 or 30 laps to go.
Egan, I want to turn to you on this immediately out of that report from Justin, because if you're behind the wheel and you're in this spot, what's your pick? Are you trying to split this in 2 under green, or are you trying to run this as long as you can and hope for a yellow?
Yeah, well, I like what I'm hearing from Justin. This is getting really interesting. Split decision races are super fun to watch. I hate racing in them, especially in the Coke Series at California. I led pretty much every lap, it felt like, but I didn't win the race because I didn't pick the right fuel strategy. And I think half the field is going to be very regretful of the decision they make, and the other half will probably be pretty dang happy. Now, I'm scanning through the back of the field here. I'm watching a lot of guys clutching on entry to the corner. Some are even shutting their engine off, their RPMs dropping to 0. But what I'm not seeing is consistency. People are picking and choosing which corners to save their fuel in and which not to. You know, they might do a few laps of going hard and then another few laps of saving. That's not the best way to do it. I think whoever's been investing in this fuel strategy the whole run is the one that's going to win this race if it goes green. Now, we're coming up on halfway of this run here, around lap 100, and this is the ideal time to pit if you're going to. So I'm expecting to see quite a few guys starting to pit sooner or later, probably in the next 5 to 10 laps.
Now, if you're in the middle of the pack, and let's say you're in this group with Lopez, Hurst, Bowden, Keister, and company who've been racing a little bit harder, are you worried if you're there, and are you struggling with that balance between trying to race the cars around you and hitting your number to make sure you get the right fuel consumption? Are you more concerned about that maybe there than you would be out front, where everybody is just sort of locked into a plan and can focus on that because you're not worried about racing somebody side by side?
If you're pitting in the next few laps, you're racing right now. If you're trying to save fuel, you're ignoring everybody else around you. It's the only thing that matters is the number right now. And yeah, if I was in this position trying to save fuel, you know, around 11th place, where Jordi Lopez Jr. is, who I'm on board with watching now, I don't think, it doesn't look like he's saving, so I don't think he's making that decision. But guys farther back, they don't care about the guys around them right now. They're just trying to hit that fuel number.
We'll get a pretty good sense of who's actually trying to make something happen. But first car down pit road, Justin Prince, it's Daniel Eberhardt.
Back Santi Torres was the first driver. Santi Torres, I should rather say, who was among those drivers who felt like they couldn't make it on fuel regardless. He actually short-fueled his car on that caution flag pit stop and elected to come on down now. So they made a few adjustments to that race car, looking to try and hold on to the track position. Daniel Eberhardt, meanwhile, just made contact with Liam Brotherton in the battle for second. Within one corner, his crew chief, Kevin King, said, come on down and pit. They were also leaning towards splitting it, more so than trying to stretch it. That was a major discussion point for them for 10-15 laps straight. Nicholas Shelton has also just come on into the pit lane this time by. He also felt drivers couldn't make it to the end. Massive adjustments coming to Nicholas Shelton in the 5 car. He's now off and away as Femi Olan also ducks on down. His team had spent the past 15 laps or so making calculations for their short fueling strategy. It was said at one point by Femi Olan he wanted to be so loose that he wanted to face the inside wall. Will he achieve that goal? Hopefully not for the kicks of the field.
Zach Nichols now coming in from the 10th position, so he'll see track position to try and split this race in two. And for everybody that's coming down now, you are hoping that this goes green the whole way. Josh Lee, if you get a yellow flag in this stretch, it kills your track position. Everybody else gets to come in ahead of you. You lose all the gains that you made off your strategy and end up with a lot of work to do over the course of the last 35 laps.
And work that they don't really want to do. It becomes very difficult to make anything happen once you get to that point. But take a look at this battle that we're taking a look at here. Retzlaff versus Strauss. Dylan Alt goes to the inside of Liam Brotherton. This is the battle for the race lead currently on the racetrack. That Strauss-Retzlaff battle is a couple positions further back, 5th and 6th. The Colin Keister P7 clinging on to that fight as well. Seth DeMerchant starting to fall a couple of places further back towards the mid-pack, but everybody's starting to work their way into the pit lane. A couple of drivers sneaking their way in. We haven't really seen anybody else since that point, but I would expect over the next handful of laps we're going to see a couple more drivers coming in, and it seems like a couple of drivers might be good to the end on fuel. But the magic thing that we need to be wondering, James, is if they're good to the end on fuel, how are their tires going to hold up, and will they have the tires to defend once the drivers on fresh Goodyear rubber start to catch up?
No. Here's Colin Keister's on board. He and Donovan Strauss, or rather Parker Retzlaff behind him. Well, Donovan Strauss in front of him. That trio we all know have been saving in some form. And Keister and Retzlaff in particular we know have been saving to try and make this the rest of the way without stopping. A little bit surprised, honestly, that we haven't seen more drivers come down pit road for service, and it would appear, now that the rash is over, that we're only looking at about a handful of takers that decided to try and split this race in two. Santi Torres, Daniel Eberhardt, Femi Olat, Nicholas Shelton, and Zach Nichols. That quintet, the only 5 that came down for service a handful of laps ago. Everybody else, it would seem, Devin Henry, trying to stretch this all the way to the end.
And it comes down to that balance of how much speed can I have while also clutching. Now, we talk about clutching so nonchalantly. So Keegan, one of the guys who's done this at the highest level in all of iRacing, when you clutch, though, we just talk about like it's nothing, but you have to drive the car differently when you are clutching and saving fuel. How do these drivers have to adapt there on the track and in their driving style when they are trying to save fuel and holding on to that clutch?
Yeah, when you're clutching into the corner, the whole point of it is you're detaching the motor from the tires, right? So that's reducing your rolling resistance. It's also reducing the idle speed of your engine. You know, you burn quite a bit of fuel when you get back in the throttle and you're already at high RPM here. So it saves so much fuel just dropping it down to 2,000 RPM and coasting into the corner with no friction at all from that motor. But that drive's completely different because we set these cars up with the expectation of having those rear tires attached to the engine. It drives completely different when you start clutching. And I also want to say, there's guys that I'm watching like Blade Witt, a few of these guys that were clutching the entire run from the back of the field, they're starting to run up a little bit towards the front, where some of these leaders are panicking a little bit, and I think they need to save a whole lot up near the front. It's starting to get pretty interesting.
you've got drivers who maybe have saved enough to where they might be able to actually push just a little bit too. I think we also can't rule that possibility out, Josh Lee, that some of these folks may be able to go for it in the final 20 laps or so and make a charge to the front to get that last little bit of track position, because as we said time and time again, even though the game of this series is to try and make the top 20, and being consistent usually pays more dividends than going out and winning once and then struggling a few weeks. There is a point to every spot making a difference, as you see a good battle here between Blade Witt and Jordy Lopez and company.
And every spot makes the difference, of course, for the points that we're all watching, as we're also watching this battle on the racetrack right now that is about 6 cars deep. But I think what we really need to start really thinking about is maybe a wreck happening off of turn number 4 as they went 3 wide, or tried to go 3 wide for a moment. But on the topic of fuel, for the drivers who are good to the end on fuel now, the game turns from fuel to tires. You need enough tires to get to the end, because looking at the lap times, we're down by about 1.5 seconds on the lap time, so fresh rubber is going to be better. Old rubber is going to, of course, perform worse, especially on a concrete track like we have here.
How intriguing this will be as we continue to work our way around Dover International Speedway. Get a good look here just towards the front. Might go back to Dylan Alt just because Santiago Gutierrez is making a charge on fresh tires. And we'll be able to see the difference between old tires and fresh tires in terms of speed and pace and lap time if we get a shot of our race leader here.
It's been a crazy race so far, and when it comes to the strategy, Dylan Alt, though, his crew chief, Garrett Mashburn, as soon as I went towards the box, said, "We are good to the end." They said because Dylan Alt was able to be less on the gas in the midst of the traffic and go a little bit easier, that helped them make sure they can save to be able to push now at this point. Michael Cozy Jr. and Kyle Pettle's crews also both believe that they can make it as well on gas. Right now, keep in mind, some of the drivers are still having to clutch and clutch hard, with all of the drivers on fresher tires having to move on by. So there is a lot to keep an eye on. The crew chiefs and the spotters are having to be very active here when it comes to this traffic management.
Meanwhile, look at everybody in this group just behind Michael Cozy and just how nutty it is. I'm seeing about 3 or 4 different general paces amongst this group. And Keegan, you'll know this having run, especially in long races where you get different strategies, you get green flags, tents. I'd argue that a pack with drivers on 3 or 4 different strategies where you've got some folks pushing, some folks saving, may be the most dangerous place to be, because you'll have people with completely different senses of closing rate, when to get on the throttle, when to lay off, when to brake, and usually it's the differences in pace and differences in strategy that end up causing incidents in the middle of green flag runs such as this.
Yeah, definitely right, James. But the thing is here, there's only really 6 guys that have pit. There's 29 cars right now that are trying to make this on just one stop this race. So I think that this is completely down to fuel mileage. You know, you look at Santiago Gutierrez's lap times, who was the clear leader before. He's only 7/10 a lap faster than most of these guys in the pack. There's only about 20 laps to go, not even 18 to go, and he's not going to make it. So this race is going to be whoever saved tires or saved their fuel the best. Maybe might have tires at the end of the race to go for that win, but I'm interested to see who's closing and who might be panicking on barely making it to the end of this race.
See Femi Olot making a charge just a little bit further up the field. Here's Blade Witt trying to hold off Brian Mercurio. This is a little bit in the middle of this field, 14th and 15th on the racetrack. Here's a good look out of Mercurio's windshield, trying to work to the outside of Witt, and just ahead of Blade Witt is Colin Bowden. So nice little trio battling for position here coming down the backstretch, Josh.
Oh, and take a look at that move to the inside. Exactly what Mercurio was trying to do there. He was waiting on the 7. Just make a little bit of a mistake to push him up the racetrack, and right on around goes Brian Mercurio. on board with Michael Cozy Jr. now. You can see the 98 Ashton Crowder going right by. He came into the pit lane just a couple of minutes ago, running now back on the racetrack. So we're starting to see a lot of different strategies on the racetrack now, James. We're seeing a couple of drivers who are good to the end, staying out on the racetrack. We're seeing a couple of drivers trickle their way into the pit lane and absolutely blowing their way by all the drivers on their old tires. This one's going to be interesting. With 15 to go, there is not a lot of room for error and not a lot of time for these drivers to really develop anything further. There goes Ashton Crowder right on by. He's 3 laps down. It'll be up to 2 now as he comes across the line.
Ashton Crowder is not the worry, though, for your race leader. It is all about Colin Keister, who gained 0.3 of a second on Dylan Alt the last lap by. Keister is making his charge, and within maybe a lap or two, we might have a battle for the race lead, and these two are clear of everybody else by about maybe 2 seconds or so. So this is very much mano-a-mano between Keister and Dylan Alt for P1 as we enter the final 15 laps of the 5th round of the 2021 eNASCAR Contender iRacing Series at Dover, Devin.
And remember what we were talking about earlier with Colin Keister in this North 4th, I can't even speak today, NFR, how it seemed like they had a very concise and intricate plan. They were dicing it through the field. 38 cars started tonight. He started 36. He's now in P2, and it feels like he has the speed right now over Dylan Alt. This is a guy, I think, in a team that really began planning for this battle for the lead back on lap number 1. That's when they started saving tire, saving fuel to lead up to this moment right here in that 8 car. He's got that reel in the water, and he's slowly starting to pull in that 40. It might be very, very tight here with now just 11 laps to go.
Can Colin Keister run down Dylan Alt? It's not like either of these two particularly need to win in comparison to some of these other drivers in the field. They're both in the top 20 in points entering this evening, and by a solid margin too. Keister 42 points clear of the drop, and Dylan Alt 24 points clear of the drop. So it isn't the necessity to finish well that it might be for, say maybe a Santiago Gutierrez or Michael Cozy Jr. or somebody. But again, wins aren't going to hurt, and especially if you can leave Darlington next week 40 points to the good, no matter what happens, you're racing the Coast Series next year. Because you get 40 points for the win. It's the max amount of points you can get. So we'll have to see how things pan out, but it doesn't look like anybody's going to clinch a spot tonight. We're just a little bit too far away from the end to be able to say we know that some folks are going to be Coke Series racing, but we're closing in on that time of the season where we're going to start to chip off and knock out a few spots in next year's Coke Series field before we get to our finale at Texas Motor Speedway in 2 weeks' time, Josh.
Yeah, nobody mathematically in, but I believe we are going to have a couple of drivers that'll end up being mathematically out. I believe specifically Ashton Crowder might be in that boat. Brad Davies will most likely be in that boat. Same thing with Brian Schoenberg, most likely being in that boat as well. Donovan Strauss will not be completely good, but with another solid finish at Darlington, he's looking at a top 5 here, which he has not finished outside the top 10 this entire season, except for Phoenix round number 1. He is looking at being close to moving his way into a guaranteed spot in the Coke Series. Same thing with Colin Keister. He has had some great runs as of late. He is looking at also being one of those drivers to lock himself in with a solid run in Darlington, but that's really what it's all going to come down to. Like you mentioned, James, nobody can lock themselves in from this point, but what a drive we're seeing from Dylan Alt right now. What a chase we're seeing from Colin Keister. Keister, of course, trying to go back to victory lane. He won at Homestead in round number 2. Dylan Alt trying to go to victory lane for the first time this season. And oh, by the way, James, Dylan Alt trying to go to victory lane from 13th in the points. This is really going to help him on his quest to the Coca-Cola Series.
If he can hang on, it's a very valid point that you make there. Meanwhile, we also need to note that Colin Keister's worst finish in this entire Contender Series, 7th at Auto Club and at Nashville. That is consistency in a nutshell right there. Meanwhile, Keegan Leahy to you for one more point. You're looking at Colin Keister, you're looking at Dylan Alt. If you're in their shoes, what are you trying to do if you're Dylan? What are you trying to do if you're Colin in this situation?
Yeah, I've been watching them pretty intently the last 20 laps or so, trying to figure out who's get the advantage here. I was watching Colin Keister clutching quite a few laps in a row before, but both of them have stopped now. I think they've both got fuel to make it. They're confident, and it's coming down to who's got the faster car now. Colin is driving really hard on exit of these corners. You know, we only got 2 or 3 laps to go here, and there's no point in saving now, but it looks like Dylan's got the advantage.
All about not making a mistake, and Dylan Alt might have the opportunity to punch in one of his biggest victories in his sim racing career. And not to say that his art was entirely like Donovan Strauss's, but a similar sort of way. Things went for him in the Contender Series last year, where he just wasn't all that competitive, didn't make it into the Coach Series, had to go back to the qualifying series and run his way back up. And we've seen quiet consistency from him solidly outside of a poor run at Auto Club. He's been around the top 10 pretty much every race this season, but not like this, not in the front of the field as we get the white flag. One more lap to go for Dylan Alt to pick up his first win in Contender Series competition. Already stretching it on Colin Keister, who I think will be happy at this point to come home with P2. So it's all about one more ride through turn 3 and turn 4. And off the final quarter comes Dylan Alt out of Sacramento, California, who will go to victory lane and win race number 5 of the 2021 eNASCAR Contender iRacing Series from the virtual Dover International Speedway. The fuel strategy held up Josh Alt, and now Dylan Alt. Or rather, Josh Lee, Dylan Alt. Good job as I get names twisted there. But Josh Lee, how about Dylan Alt? Saved enough fuel to get the victory.
Oh, James, I'm ecstatic for Dylan Alt as well. I completely understand getting the names mixed up, but man, what a run. I did not think the tires would hold up for 87 laps. He had an 87-lap stint from the yellow flag all the way to the end. Perfect fuel strategy. And Colin Keister was on a similar fuel strategy, and he ran out coming out of turn number 4. What a run for both of those drivers, but unfortunately for Colin Keister, worked a little bit better for that 40 machine.
Big win for Lowline Racing, too. Haven't had the chance to talk about them all that much, as Dylan Alt is going to burn it down and celebrate his first victory, the 2021 eNASCAR Contender iRacing Series, as we take a look at the full field rundown to tell you where your favorite driver finished. Alt, your winner by 0.7 of a second over Colin Keister for North Force Racing. Liam Brotherton brings it home P3 for Elliott Sadler Esports, his best run of the Contender Series so far. Donovan Strauss with another solid finish comes home 4th. Kyle Peddle finishes in P5. 6th went to Blake Reynolds. Parker Retzlaff came home in 7th. Michael Cozy Jr. with a really sorely needed solid run comes home 8th this evening. Derek Bordeaux finishes in the 9th spot, and 10th this evening was Justin Bolton. Jocelyn.
Derek Justice sits P11 at the checkered flag. Cody Bias in 12th. Brian Mercurio 13th. Colin Bowden 14th with Blade Witt rounding out the top 15. Taylor Hurst comes home 16th. Brian LaPrade with one of his worst runs of the season comes home P17. Jake Nichols P18. Chris Shearburn P19 with Blake McCandless on the flip side. One of his best runs of the season. He comes home P20.
21st goes to Jordy Lopez Jr., Malik Ray in 22nd, Ryan Doucette 23rd. Alan Bowes had quite a bit of adversity, started dead last, finishes in 24th. Casey Tucker P25. Santiago Tires, the strategy does not work out. He ends up in 26th. 27th to Seth the Merchant. Anthony Burrows in P28. Rough day for Femi Olot, started 4th, has to settle for 29th, and Nicholas Shelton rounds out the top 30.
31st was Jake Matheson. 32nd was Zach Nichols. Daniel Eberhardt came home in 33rd. Caden Honeycutt was 34th. Brandon McKissick finished in the 35th position. 36th went to Ashton Crowder. Garrett Lowe came home in the 37th spot. The 38th final car, and the only car out of tonight's race, Christian Peterson for Logitech G Altus Esports. As we now turn our attention to our race winner, Dylan Alt. Going to join us in the booth momentarily, and Dylan Alt now with us here to talk about his run, his win, and first and foremost, let's go to it here. You know, you had a lot of help from Garrett Mashburn to top the box, Dylan, but the strategy here to save fuel right from the get-go after we got our yellow flag around lap 55, where'd that strategy come about? How'd you execute?
Ever since the restart, I was just trying to get my track position. I had to push so hard on the top. I was just trying to get to the bottom as much as possible and then just calm down. And then after like 5 laps or so, then I started seeing or asking like Garrett if we can make it to the end, or would a pit stop be faster at all. But yeah, I just sat behind people and just let off the corner early, try to save tires mostly. And then when we started to get to the end of the race, started saving more. And then we started slowing down so I can lift off earlier and just coast through the corner. I think, I don't know how many, it was like 80 laps. So I would say a third of that run, I was using the clutch entering the corner and just coast entry. And it worked out.
You were playing this from the very beginning as soon as we got back to green flag racing. That's part of the reason why you're in this position tonight. But more importantly for you, just in your sim racing career, this win has to stack up there with the best of them. What does it mean to you to be an eNASCAR Contender iRacing Series winner?
I never thought this season I would have gotten a win, even in the Road to Pro qualifying series. I never thought I was going to get a win, but I'm glad I got a win at Watkins Glen. And then the Contender series, these are like the best guys before Coke. I never thought I was going to get a win at any of these tracks. If there was a road course, maybe, but yeah, I never thought. But I'm so glad that this race was a field strategy. So crazy.
Wild, crazy. More importantly, just looking at it with the drops factored in unofficially, I think you're going to be near the top 5 in points. So now that you've got a little bit more of a buffer going to Darlington and Texas, does that change the way you approach those 2 tracks, knowing that you've got room to be a little bit more aggressive or try something if you need or want to, given that you've done the hard work and gotten the win tonight?
Yeah, I'm just going to, like I said today, I just wanted to get a top 20. I knew I had a buffer, so I would have been able to finish like below 20th, like around like 22nd or something, and still be fine. So this win just means so much. I'd like to thank Certainteed, Pay to Win Setups, Garrett Mashburn, Matt, Tyler Severa. I can't talk right now. I'm shaking so much. Brendan, everyone at Low Line and ESC, they put so much time into this. I'm glad it finally paid off.
Yeah, hey, Dylan, first of all, welcome to Victory Lane. Awesome job. That was a really good race. They had me on as an analyst for this race, and I was watching the back of the field, and a lot of guys were clutching not just the last third of the run, but most of the run. So let me ask you this. How did you run so fast? How did you pull so much of the field? Except Colin, who was on your rear bumper for most of it, you pulled everyone else. How did you do that and save fuel that whole time?
I feel like the setup that we had, we can use right front because it was very, I don't know, it just used the right rear a lot, so we can send it in harder. So when I would just hold clutch down, I can send it in and still have rotation through the corner, so I just keep the speed. And yeah, I think that helped a lot.
Great. Awesome job again.
Thank you.
Dylan Alt, your winner here at Dover International Speedway. We'll look forward to seeing him in Darlington 1 week from tonight. In second, there's a man that you've heard a few times before, another podium finish in the eNASCAR Contender iRacing Series for Frostburg, Maryland's Colin Keister, who's with our Josh Lee.
5 top 10s in a row, and if that number 5 sounds familiar, this is round 5. So top 10s in every single race for you this season, Colin. Let's talk about your pace tonight first of all, because Keegan mentioned a lot of drivers clutching, and you came from 36th up all the way to finished in second because of that fuel strategy at the end. Do you feel like you had some better pace in the car once you got into race pace, or was that finish purely based on that fuel strategy?
I feel like I had a winning pace if I would have qualified better. I messed up my Q lap completely and started in the back, and I didn't expect me to be able to pass all those cars and save gas. I only clutched it for maybe 5 or 10 laps throughout the entire run, but I was just glad that I was able to make it on gas there, and I'm glad I came away with a second after starting 36th for sure.
And of course, going through that race, and you mentioned that fuel strategy. When that yellow came out, you came down into the pit lane. Were you planning on coming back down into the pit lane and the strategy changed once you saw you could make it to the end? Or was that the strategy from the yellow flag all the way to the checker that you would try and make it work?
we had an idea that it was around 85 laps or so that we could make it on gas. So at the beginning of the run, I was thinking about pitting, but I started paying attention to my fuel when I was pretty close. So I just decided to go with it and stay out there.
Moving forward, of course, 1 week's time, Darlington Raceway, rather similar track to Dover in a few ways. Can you keep up the top 10 streak and go 6 in a row and continue your trek into the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series?
I would like to. I think we'll have another good piece next week. The North Force guys bring good equipment every week, it seems like, and we keep it up. We should have another good car next week and hopefully get another top 10. Keep it rolling.
Great run tonight, Colin. Thank you for joining us here post-race. Congratulations on the second place.
Thank you.
Great to hear, James, from Colin Keister and keeping up that streak. It's not only a streak at top 10s, but he's starting a streak at top 5s as well.
Liam Brotherton, best finish of the season for him by a landslide. P3 this evening, and he is with our Devin Henry.
Yeah, Liam Brotherton bringing it home on the podium for the Elliott Sadler Esports team. And hey, man, you look pretty hyped right now. You're looking pretty good. I mean, when you spent time out front in the lead, you were able to slide back a little bit, get back up there. What exactly worked for you tonight here at Dover to do what you needed to tonight and bring home a great finish?
First of all, let's go, Dylan! So proud of this team. Elliott Sadler Esports, low line. These guys are amazing. Sorry if I blew everyone's eardrums out. I'm so proud of everybody. Man, also, God is good. Thank you, my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, for giving me these opportunities to race. Thank you to Pay to Win Setups for being on the car. ClubJerky.com, save 10% off with code LiamB. E-Racer, everybody supports me. Kyle Puts Customs. As for tonight, man, we have just bombed in qualifying all year. And whether that be me having the classic G-Bot syndrome, or whether it just be we didn't have the setup. But this week, we dedicated a couple guys to just working on the qualifying setup, and it really helped put us up towards the front. And even last week, guys, I'm serious. If you got any one of these Elliott Sadler Esports low-line cars up there in the lead, they would have won the race. And that showed again today. But, man, my point situation is not looking great. So I said, I'm up here in the front. I'm just going to save like mad. And I think I crossed the line with like 3 laps, like estimate on the fuel. So I probably had way more than I needed. Probably could have held off and won the race. But I was just going to take that conservative route, get a P3. So just awesome. Awesome.
So you seem pretty happy with the third place finish. When you get momentum like this in a season that just has not been the biggest bright spot of your entire calendar year, how do you take this momentum, try to bottle it up, only 2 more races, try to make up that little bit of gap?
Yeah, I think what tonight shows more than anything, guys, is any one of these 40 guys in the roll, 37, I guess, tonight, any one of these 37 guys, if they can qualify, put themselves up front, they can win races. I mean, you saw it with Santi tonight, saw it with Femi, saw it with myself, saw it with Dylan. I mean, there's so many guys in this field that can win races, and you just got to have that right qualifying and the right setup underneath you, and it'll work out. So I'm gonna try and just take this confidence. I did a little bit different on the. I've been bouncing around with qualifying ideas to how to keep myself calm. Today we listened to some pop punk music, got a little hyped up, and that worked really good. So I think I'm gonna stick with that. But thank you to everyone who supports me. The Dat Boys, you all know who you are. My mom, she's amazing, always supporting me. Judy and Gary, they started watching again. Quick story with them. I was a huge Carl Edwards fan growing up, and I would get invited to go to the Bristol track, 'cause I grew up out there, and there would be these 2 a little bit older people who were big Carl Edwards fans, and I became super good friends with them. And we would go to like the Roush Fenway fan days and camp out all night and do all of that. And I actually have a picture with Elliott Sadler from one of those. So, yeah, shout out to them for watching. Grandparents, everybody. It's been amazing. Thank you to Elliott Sadler. That dude has meant so much to me. Really committed guy. And everyone at Elliott Sadler Esports and Lowline.
Liam, congratulations. Sounds like punk rock it is moving forward, or punk pop, moving forward for Liam Brotherton and Elliott Sadler Esports. Congrats on the podium finish, Liam.
Thank you guys so much.
He may have one of the best Spotify playlist groups that I've seen in a long, long while. Liam Brotherton, one of the more musically inclined men in this eNASCAR Contender iRacing Series field. But as we start looking towards the final 2 races of the season, Darlington and Texas coming up over the course of the next 2 weeks. 2 races for these drivers to settle it down. Other thing I'm noticing, just as I look at the point standings, that bunch, especially behind the cutoff, stretched in this race. We had about maybe 5 drivers that were within 10 points coming into this thing. we're now looking at, maybe call it what, 7 or 8 that are in that same spot at this stage. So you're starting to see the folks who just aren't going to have the speed begin to fall off, and the folks who are consistent begin to pull away. We're starting to, I think, focus in on who really is going to be part of that bubble as we get towards the final race of the season at Texas, Josh.
Starting to see also who's going to be making those Hail Mary passes to try and make it into the Coke Series in the final 2 rounds, because Darlington and Texas, 2 completely different tracks from each other to Dover and really to anything that we have seen so far in this campaign. So some of the drivers that are outside of that top 20 have to throw everything at the wall and hope something at least sticks to get as much points as they need to get up and into the top 20. We can only take 20. We're going to cut 20 and take the top 20 out of the 40 that we came into this season with. And everybody wants to be a part of that top 20, but we're going to start to see a couple of drivers that unfortunately are going to be knocked out, or a couple of drivers that are going to be safe and on into the Coke Series, even if they decide to not show up in the last 2 rounds.
Now, you could try and throw a Hail Mary if you want to next week, Devin Hendry. The problem is that Darlington might be the quintessential driver's track. It's a place where you can't cheat excellence, you can't cheat pace, you can't cheat success. If you're good at Darlington, you genuinely have a lot of skill, and it takes a lot of talent to get around there and get around there quickly.
I mean, for someone to throw a Hail Mary at Darlington, that's like trying to throw a Hail Mary from about the 1-yard line, 99 yards downfield. It's not just a regular, yeah, I'm going to go in there, give everything I got, yeah, we're good. No. Darlington is a track, like you said, it's a driver's track. You have to go in there with a meticulous effort and preparation to go and find a decent finish to begin with. Then you have the variables of how difficult the track is, everyone else having to conquer the Lady in Black as well. So this is no track that you look at and go, I can win here, we got this, we're good, Hail Mary. No. This is where you have to go and find your way to move up the track. Your bed is made now in the Contender Series. What can you do with it with just 2 races to go?
Keegan Leahy, first time up in the booth. You got a completely different perspective on the way these races play out. How'd it go for you? What did you enjoy the most about being up here tonight?
Hey, yeah, this was super fun. I like to watch the broadcast normally, or at least watch the replay live in the sim. And it's pretty fun to, just watch the race on my own pace and pay attention to one driver, usually my teammate in this situation, Chris Sherburne. But this race, I was paying attention to everybody, really paying attention to the strategy. I really felt for those drivers that committed to that stop with 40 to go. So guys like Nick Shelton, Femi Olat, Santiago Gutierrez, they were super fast, but wrong strategy. And unfortunately, that's just how it goes sometimes. Talking a bit about Darlington, yeah, super difficult track, driver's track, and it's coming at the right time of the season to make a really good race, because normally that's kind of a bit of a boring track in my opinion, because you can't really make passes, but there's some people around that cutoff that are moving away from, what you heard from Liam about having to make some risky choices to maybe going towards more on the desperation side. So it's going to be a crazy race. People aren't going to be giving and taking quite as much, and I'm looking forward to some good racing and probably some drama.
The right timing for that race. Definitely something we'll need to keep an eye on, because that's where we are next week. Coming your way, Darlington Raceway round number 6 of the eNASCAR Contender iRacing Series, and that broadcast to hit the airwaves 9 p.m. on iRacing's Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook channels. Also, a big thank you to you, Keegan Leahy, defending eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series champion from 2311, for spending your time with us in the booth this evening. It is time for us to say good night for everyone at iRacing that helps to make this series possible. Tyler Hudson, Drew Adamson, Sean Ambrose, Cisco Scaramuza, and Corey Vervincht. For our team at Podium Esports, John Theodore, Gary Sexton. For our camera builder, Dougie Beard. For our producer, Ryan Bauer. And for my colleagues in the booth, Josh Lee, Devin Hendry, and our pit reporter, Justin Prince, I am James Pike, the voice of Podium Esports. Thank you so much for watching our coverage of the eNASCAR Contender iRacing Series, and we will see you 1 week from tonight in the Lady in Black Dark Raceway.